So I'm just going to show you all tonight how to make two things out of one thing. So we're looking for this synergy in cooking for one and two, right? It's a little bit more difficult to follow. It's a little bit harder to plan in some respects. So I'm here to take a little bit of that off of your plate so that you can plan a little bit easier. And I have put a PDF inside the Library Chef platform where you got this, where you signed up for this session. So you'll be able to go and see the entire PDF, and it has a few recipes in there for you. All right, so these are very simple recipes, extremely easy to make. And essentially it is all about just using something twice. So when we have like shredded chicken from a rotisserie chicken or shredded chicken left over, instead of making a chicken salad, you can make a rice bowl. So what I'm going to do is for our first recipe here, we're just going to make I have cauliflower rice here. We're going to just make a broccoli and chicken, kind of just a quick, easy stir fry. And then with the rest of the rotisserie chicken, we're going to make a flatbread. All right. So I'm going to get started on that in just a second. We're going to get some oil in that pan. I hear it sizzling already. All right, put that oil in there. I'm going to just get that garlic cooking up. Now, if you're just joining us, we apologize for the delay tonight, but we're going to go over a short presentation with you as well on cooking for one or two, because the truth is that when we're cooking for one or two, you know, sometimes we wind up with food waste, right? We make more than what we need, and we wind up having an issue with it going bad before we can actually eat it all. You know, I mean, I have downsized a little bit in my life. My kids aren't here as much. So, you know, I personally don't cook as much as I used to either. I find myself eating very, very small amounts to begin with. But point being is we want that food waste to be minimized. All right, so I'm going to go over some fun things that will help you with the food waste. Now, one of the things that I believe in, honestly, is, you know, mind shifts. So, you know, the mind shifts of the recipes are really big, right? So they call for 4 portions, 6 portions, 8 portions, and that can be quite a bit, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to minimize that, and I'm going to show you a new formula on how you can use and shift your mind, shift your mindset. All right. So before we get into that, we have our garlic in the pan here, and what we're going to do is we're going to add in our oregano. And I have just a little bit of salt and pepper in here, okay? All right. All right, and we're just going to kind of bloom the oregano just a touch in the oil, because essentially this recipe is a very easy recipe, very quick. So these are all with leftovers and such you're able to do. All right, so we're just going to bloom that right there. Just a little bit, give it a little bit of flavor, a little bit of context. Then we're going to add in our broccoli. And we're going to let that cook for a second. And then we're going to add in our chicken. All right. So these 3 things right here, these the chicken and the broccoli and then the rice is a real good complete meal. You can hear that sizzle. All right. Get it nice and hot, and then we're going to add the lemon juice in, and then that's just going to go over our cauliflower rice. Once it's hot enough for you, that's what we're going to do. All right, and then we're going to make a flatbread pizza. All right, so our flatbread pizza is it's going to be a barbecue pizza. So we're going to use the rest of our chicken. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you to use one after another, but the whole technique here is to plan in advance. So it goes back to those mind shifts, all right? So the mind shift is, you know, stop cooking with recipes as much as cooking with ingredients, and start to plan the meal overs, okay? Not the leftovers, but the meal overs for what it is that you're going to have the next day. So when you're doing something, when you're making a meal, you can ask yourself, what am I making tonight? Instead of what am I making tonight, ask yourself instead, what can this ingredient become? Because when we have an ingredient that becomes something else, we can plan in advance for that. So I know that having a whole chicken for 1 or 2 people might be a little much, right? You know you're going to have a little bit left over. All right, so before we go into that, we're just going to add in our lemon juice. All right, and remember, we already have our salt and pepper in there. It's just a little bit. And then voila, done. All right. So if you want, what you can do is you can spoon it right over your rice here. All right, if you'd like. And this PDF is inside where you signed up for this session. All right. There we go, all done. Okay, so that's our recipe 1. And voila, look at that. Super simple, quick and easy. All right, so you can use frozen broccoli, you can use fresh broccoli if you'd like, you can use shredded chicken, you can even use canned chicken if you would like. All right, so it's very versatile in that respect. All right, so the next one we're gonna do is our French bread, or you can use naan. You could use flatbread, you could use French bread, large tortillas. It's really up to you on what you want to use as far as the base. I'm just going to use a French bread right here. Okay. So essentially with the French bread, you want to take and you want to put the barbecue sauce on it. All right. So I apologize, we had to go to another streaming to help us out here tonight. So I'm just going to show you here. Put that sauce on there. All right, and then once we have the sauce on, it's really simple. It's just like making pizza, guys. All right, so we have our chicken here. We can put on both sides. There we go. Now remember that top part of that baguette or that French bread might be a little wiggly, so just remember that. But just spread out that rotisserie chicken right over it. And this is a quick and easy way to be able to make a little pizza, if you will. All right, so I'm gonna just take our mozzarella and fold it over there like that. You can use shredded mozzarella. You could use cheddar cheese on this instead. And then what I like to do is I like to take and put some onions on there and let the onions kind of crispen up and melt into it. So while these are in the oven, I'll show you the final product, but we're going to get back to our presentation because I got some great little nuggets for you for some information on how to shop more effectively and save some money. Okay, so we're just going to go into the oven here. All right. Up there. See what I mean by that? They like to pop off. Okay. All right, so we're going to put this on the top shelf probably for about 8 minutes or so. Okay. All right, and then we'll come back to the presentation here. All right, so for the presentation here, really what my biggest goal is to help you see some of the ingredients as ingredients and not just recipes. All right, so that's one of the biggest things when you're cooking for a smaller amount of people is improvisational cooking, using one thing into another. All right, so you can scroll down to kitchen MVPs. All right, so instead of thinking of it as a recipe, we are looking at it as an ingredient. So essentially it's all about making sure that you stay with the basics, really. So some of the great basics are rotisserie chicken, ground turkey or beef, salmon, eggs, beans. Those are some of the great proteins that are very easy and versatile, but also grains like rice, pasta, potatoes, and tortillas have a versatility as well. So when it comes to vegetables, fresh is always best, right? But if we can't get fresh, or it's a little bit more expensive than what we want, and the frozen suffices, some of the greatest vegetables, because with frozen vegetables, you do when they pick the vegetables for freezing the vegetables, you really do get a lot of nutrient in it. When we cook them too much is when all the nutrient is taken out of it, and it just becomes just filler food. So like I said, the fresh is always the best, but the frozen, you can use some of the frozen as well. And I used some frozen broccoli here to show you that with our little bowl here. All right, and then canned. So one of the best vegetables for being able to use effectively and be able to use, consistently, or it holds up very well, is corn. That's an excellent one. My personal take on green beans in a can is that they're very high in sodium and they're not that great. They're very, very mushy. But, using canned stuff, I've gotten away from, and I've gone more towards the fresh on everything in my life. But we're going to move on to the flavor boosters. So the flavor boosters are all about, what you can use that's semi fresh, as well as some of the sauces like barbecue sauce, teriyaki sauce, marinara sauce. But again, if we're looking to save money, those things can go a long way, right? So one bottle of barbecue sauce can last you a very long time. Same thing with any of the bottled sauces. But when the flavor boosters don't have to be just, the things in the bottle, it can also be some fresh stuff as well. Ginger paste, miso, you can use fresh lemon or lime to bump up the flavor profile on it as well. All right, so again, when we're going into having a better mindset on what it is that we're doing with cooking for one or two, what we're looking to do is change our formula, right? So the new magic formula of this is, protein, grain, vegetable, flavor equals a new meal. So instead of looking at it as a recipe, look at it as what kind of protein do I want? What kind of grain or potato or what have you? If you like that, I particularly are more of a no carb, very low carb person these days, but I'm usually looking at a protein and a vegetable and some kind of flavor. So my flavor profiles that I really love are using fresh herbs. It's also using lemon and lime in my cooking. And it's also using great ingredients like ginger, scallions, garlic, chilies, things of that nature to give it flavor. All right, so same ingredients, different experience, but what we're doing is we're just changing from thinking of it as a recipe to thinking of it as ingredients. All right, so I listed some examples in there for you if you want to go ahead and take a look at that. But one tonight was, chicken, rice, and broccoli and lemon can turn into, if you have the chicken left over, make a chicken quesadilla out of it, or make a barbecue chicken quesadilla out of it. There's always ways to be able to modify, if you will. All right, so here are some of the foods and that really do save money. Okay, so we all know that chicken, is a little bit less expensive, even though these days it's a little bit more expensive. But the rotisserie chicken at your grocery store is great to be able to stretch a meal. It provides a lot of chicken for that, and it really helps stretch it, if you will. So a rotisserie chicken already cooked off. You could make a dinner out of that. You can make wraps. You can make soup, chicken salad, flatbreads. And then the next protein is ground turkey. right? So we know that or ground beef. We know that that has elevated in price as well. So some ways that we can use this in multiple ways to stretch it is taking those tacos and then turning it into a chili, adding your beans in, adding some more vegetables, or even some sweet potatoes in there so that that gives it a little bit more heartiness to it. You can also take that ground turkey and turn it into stuffed peppers and then taco salad and make a pasta out of it or make a bolognese sauce. So that's something that you could batch cook as well and make multiple batches and be able to use it over and over. All right, so rice and side dishes, rice is great because rice is one of those things where you're able to make like a big pot of rice and be able to use it in many different ways, right? So a side dish for that could be fried rice. You could add, some chicken or the rotisserie chicken into the fried rice. You could make burrito bowls with it, stuffed peppers. You can even make rice pudding, right? So that's a funny story. I'll tell you at another time with the rice pudding. I had to save my daughter's rice pudding a couple of weeks ago. All right, and then potatoes. So potatoes are a great universal way in order to be filling, but also to be able, if you use different kinds of potatoes, like a sweet potato, be able to use it in many ways as well. So baked potatoes, loaded potato bowls, potato soup. You can make a breakfast hash. So all of those different things that you're able to use use potatoes for, and potatoes are very universal in a lot of ways because they don't really have a lot of flavor profile, especially if you go more towards a potato that you use for mashed. It's very simple. It's got really no clashing of sorts with different flavors. All right, so we just did the live demo. I wanted to start that off with you all because we were running a little behind. But the 5-minute rescue meals, okay? Because let's be honest, how many of us really have time to cook sometimes, right? So great ways to have a 5-minute quick meal. You could make an egg sandwich. A quesadilla is super easy. Some cheese, some rotisserie chicken in there. Fold it up and just, fry it up in the pan and voila, done. And then we have chicken wraps, chicken soup. We could do a loaded potato. Pasta with frozen vegetables are always great. And then Greek yogurt, tuna melt. That's one from like the blast from the past. But these are all still homemade and easy for you to make, as well as, only make 1 or 2 portions. Okay, so some tips for less waste without feeling deprived. All right, so we know that these bigger stores carry a lot of family-size things. And that can be very intimidating when it's only 1 or 2 of us buying a big bulk of something and thinking, well, am I really going to make it through it? I've even been there with having kids in that respect because they just wouldn't eat it at the pace that I thought they would. And then I wound up having to use it for something else or I lost it. So I can totally understand how that would feel on your end. But here are some tips that you can use as well. So when you buy loose produce, buy loose produce instead of large bags. Okay, so like the Costco, 6 heads of romaine or the 3 heads of romaine, and you realize, yeah, you know what? I'm only gonna have this once or twice this week. I think 1 head would be enough. So buying that instead. Herbs. So when you get your herbs in, what you can do is you can take your little ice cube tray and you can fill it with a little bit of olive oil. And then you can take your fresh herbs and pop the fresh herbs in there. And then you'll have a nice little ice cube with olive oil and your herbs that you can flavor things with. All right, labeling containers is a great way to cut down on the waste as well. Because let's face it, I've done it myself sometimes. Where I just threw something in the freezer and I didn't label it, and I'm like, what is this?
I'm not recognizing it. So another one is making sure that you freeze your bread. If you're not going to use the bread, because we know bread sometimes can go moldy quickly. We don't want that to happen. So we can take and we can freeze the bread. And then this is a great one. I really like this. Is one shelf in your refrigerator and your freezer that says "Eat me first." So if you think about that you put it on that shelf, then you're not searching around in the refrigerator if you have the space or the freezer with your leftovers or whatever you put up there as well. Okay, so let me see here. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so shopping smarter. So when we're shopping smarter, we're saving money, right? But sometimes we're just frantic and sometimes we're hungry and we just go into a grocery store and we just want everything. So what I usually say is, fresh and frozen are best friends, okay? So if you can't get it fresh and you can get it frozen, like I said, the content of the nutrients are still there. The texture might be a tad bit off, but again, you can use it and doctor it up in certain things. Now, the frozen vegetables, like I had mentioned before, they're picked at the peak, so their freshness is great, and then they're also very nutritious, picked fresh. Now, another tip for cooking for one or two is small kitchens need smart tools. So if you have a small kitchen or if you have limited space, fancy equipment isn't needed unless you want it and you use it often. But these are some of the most required tools that help you out. And one of the ones that I think is a game changer, in my opinion, is the air fryer and the slow cooker and the rice cooker. Those three are my big tools inside my kitchen, other than my oven and my stove. I don't use, and a sharp chef's knife, of course, but I don't use the rice cooker and the slow cooker as much as I used to, but I still use it from time to time. Clear food storage containers that you're able to label is great as well. And of course, measuring cups and measuring spoons. So our challenge for you is, I want you to start to think about, before you cook, think about this sentence: this chicken is going to become dinner, but could it be lunch or one more meal? And then that will give you an idea of what you could do with it. So let's say, this became, our chicken and broccoli, but what we have the flatbread pizza, the barbecue flatbread pizza inside the oven as well. I call it pizza because I grew up with French bread pizza too, But essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help you, think of it in a different way. Instead of recipe, think of it as ingredients that I can mix and match. So if you can think of 3 ideas, if you can't think of 3 ideas, cook less of it, or, use another protein. Or if you can get 3 out of it, it's always better with the chicken. All right. So kitchen confidence is something that I teach quite often. And one thing that I always try to do is make sure that I keep it simple for people, because the truth is they didn't go to culinary school. They just want to make dinner. And making dinner is sometimes challenging for people. And that's why we have a lot of people spending more money on eating out or taking, getting a DoorDash or what have you. But keep it simple. Cooking for 2 can be just as effortless, but it's really freedom to cook what you love, freedom to waste less and save more, and freedom to spend, less time in the kitchen and more time enjoying your meal. All right. So this week's challenge is that just choose that one protein and then create 3 different meals out of it. All right, and if you want, you can take a picture of each one of them. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with this thought. Cooking for one or two isn't so much about shrinking the recipes as much as about expanding the possibilities. All right, so if we think of it in a different mindset of not a recipe, it's just ingredients, we're able to get in there and able to actually improv just a little bit more. All right, so I'm gonna check on this flatbread and see where we are on this. I'm pretty sure it's doing. Yeah, it's almost there. All right, so I'm just gonna show you all. Okay, so I'm going to just probably pop it in there just for one more minute or so. Because my kids like it a little bit crispy on top. All right, so I'm just gonna go to the questions, see if anyone has any questions, and then we will say goodnight. Okay. All right. So Andrea is asking, it's really difficult for me to cook just for one person. I wind up making a sandwich. I wind up making a sandwich all the time. Okay, so I get it. I understand that. You saw how simple this was. So this winds up being, it was one bag of, frozen cauliflower rice. So it's 2 portions. So essentially, I could take the cauliflower rice from the other portion and make a fried rice out of it with the chicken. All right. So you can multiply on that, especially if it's one person. So it gets a little bit harder with 3 and up to do those kinds of things, but definitely with one person. Okay, let's see here. All right, Andrew is asking, I always end up with too many leftovers. What can I do? Well, you definitely want to think about that new mindset that I was talking about, and think in terms again of the ingredients, not so much the recipe. You can look at the recipe and then say, well, it's calling for 2 pounds of ground beef and we're only 2 people. So how much are you going to use in that? And are you going to use it for one more thing? So instead of making that full batch of leftover, why don't you make the half of it and then take the ground beef, the other half, and do something else with it and cut the recipe in half. Okay. All right, so every recipe I find serves 4 to 6 people. How do I make it for 1 or 2? Okay, so again, start with cutting the recipe in half. So when you cut the recipe in half, it gets a little bit easier to follow. But using the same ingredients for something else, I'm just going to give an example like tacos. You can make, the meat for the tacos, pop it on the side, and then make a taco salad, or a taco bowl or a burrito. There's multiple things you can do with it to keep it going. Okay. Let's see here. Andrea is asking, if I buy fresh vegetables, half of them end up in the trash. What should I do? Okay, so here's what I do so that it doesn't go bad. All right, is I choose vegetables that I can use in multiple meals. So if I'm making, broccoli and chicken with pasta, all right, and I have extra broccoli, I'm going to take that broccoli and I'm going to use it in something else. So I'm going to think of what can I use it in? Oh, I could do a broccoli and cheddar soup. I could make a broccoli and beef or broccoli and chicken stir fry. You see where I'm going with this? So it's just using that vegetable again. All right, let's see here. Great questions, everyone. Thank you. All right. Roberto is asking, is it cheaper to cook for myself or just buy a meal? Well, here's the thing, Roberto. Is it easier to buy a meal? Yes. Is it always better for you? Probably not. Just depends on what it is you're ordering, right? But cooking a meal for yourself definitely is cheaper if you like the art of cooking, but it's also a little bit more time and you have to plan a little bit. So truth be told, you need to get in there to do that. All right. All right. So we're going to go back and see if we have any more questions. All right. Looks like we're good. All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much for everyone for participating this evening. Thank you so much for understanding and having compassion for us. And tonight we do have a session for with Audra. Hopefully we will still be good for that. And that will be at 7:30. So please come back and join us for that. We would love to have you back for that as well. All right. So I'm going to say good night for now.